Welcome to my kitchen, and tonight, boy, we've got a really special recipe, and that recipe is coming from none other than the book Cooking with the Saints. And this is the book that was given to me as a gift, and I got a confession to make. When I got this book in the mail and I opened it up, Cooking with the Saints, one of the first things I did was to jump to the back of the book and see if there was a recipe for Hungarian goulash leves, or Hungarian goulash soup. And not only was there a recipe for Hungarian goulash soup, but it was combined with a recipe for, and I hope I don't mispronounce this name, pinched spaetzle, spaetzle, S-P-A-E-T-Z-L-E, spaetzle. Maybe it's spaetzle, that's the name, but regardless what the name is, we're gonna make Hungarian goulash soup and spaetzle. So, you know, before I do, I'll tell you a little bit, give you a little bit of a background of myself. I am of Hungarian descent, as well as a little bit of equal parts of Irish and Scottish. But tonight we're gonna go to the paternal side of my family and cook a traditional Hungarian meal. And in reading a little bit about this, it says tracing the origin of Hungary's robust dish, a national favorite, could take food historians back as far as the 9th century and the Magyar shepherds. Most sources agree that the Hungarian cowherds, often in the plains for months at a time, assembled its original version. When one of the cattle would perish, the cowherds mixed its meat with lard, onions, water, salt, and paprika, creating a soup or a stew that has been refined over the years. Indeed, the word goulash means cowherd or herdsman. I didn't know that. It is noteworthy that the original soup or stew now has countless variations, and apparently each restaurant cook or housewife thinks his or her dish is the best. What the ancient herdsmen assembled has now become not only a Hungarian staple, but also an international star. It is also considered a soup, not a stew. So there's a little bit of information about the origin of goulash leves, and you know, I never knew that goulash meant cowherd or herdsman. But anyway, in addition to cooking this dinner, we're going to have a real special guest tonight, and that would be none other than Saint Elizabeth herself. So Saint Elizabeth originated from Hungary, and she was born in 1207 and died in 1231. She was just a young girl at 24 when she died, and she was the daughter of a Hungarian king. She led a short but a noble life. She married at the age of 14. She had 3 children with her husband, Louis of Thuringia. To help the poor, she distributed alms and built a hospital in honor of St. Francis of Assisi. She received Franciscan instruction, shaping her life into one of chastity and prayer. She was widowed at the age of 20 when Louis died in the 6th Crusade. Afterward, she joined the Third Order of St. Francis, spending her days with the poor in the hospital she had founded. Suffering from ill health, St. Elizabeth died at age 24. Miracles of healing were reported to have happened at her very gravesite. So boy, folks, this looks like a great recipe, and I'm looking forward to it. And I've done videos with goulash leves before, and I can tell you, you know, sure as I put this up, there will be all types of comments saying that's not authentic, that's not real, that's not like Anyu used to make it, that's not like Apu used to make it. Anyu and Apu are mother and father. But anyway, tonight we're going to make it how Maybe how Saint Elizabeth would have made it. So we will. I will get the robe on, and this robe actually came a robe. You know, I catch myself sometimes when I do a video, and I try to do these just in one take, and then afterwards I'll watch the video and I'll think to myself, what was I thinking? That's not a robe, that's an apron. So this apron came with the recipe book, and we'll get started. And as I like to do when I'm going to do some cooking, I like to lay everything out. I like to lay everything out and show it to you. So let's do that. I'm going to show you the recipes here, or the ingredients. I'll show you the ingredients. Grab your pen and paper, or your tablet, or whatever you need to do to be able to get this information down, all right? So let's get started by looking at the ingredients. And here would be the ingredients for our goulash lavish. Grab your pen and paper. We're going to start with 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I'm going to try to go slow on the ingredients so you can write this down. 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, 1 large onion, peeled and chopped. Then we're going to have 2 tablespoons of Hungarian paprika. And this is the real deal, folks. This is from Budapest itself. And then we have, after the paprika, and you want that to be ground, of course, then you're going to have 1 ripe tomato, diced. 2 Hungarian wax peppers that are sliced, and this would be the Hungarian waxed pepper right there. You can just search that online and you'll see exactly what it looks like. After the 2 Hungarian wax peppers, you're going to want to have 1 small celeriac root, thinly sliced. And if you can't find the celeriac root, you're going to want to use 2 or 3 stalks of celery. And then after the celeriac root, you're going to want to have 10 to 12 whole peppercorns, which I've got right down here on the edge of the cutting board. And then after the peppercorns, you're going to want to have 4 carrots that have been peeled and chopped. And that looks like a lot of carrots there, but that's 4 carrots that I used the food processor to get nicely chopped. After the carrots, you're going to want to have 1 pound of beef roast cut into 1-inch cubes, and you're going to want to have 1 pound of boneless pork meat that's also cut into 1-inch cubes. So you're going to have 1 pound each of beef roast and boneless pork roast, and those are all cut into 1-inch cubes. Then you're going to have 5 to 6 medium potatoes that are peeled and sliced. So there you see my potatoes. They tell you that you want to use russet potatoes. You want to use a firm potato. And then you're going to have salt to taste. Now, as far as the spaetzle, if I'm not mistaken, I hope that's spaetzle, okay? With that, you're going to want to have 1 cup of all-purpose flour. You're going to have a half a teaspoon of salt, 2 large eggs, 2 tablespoons of cold water, and 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. So again, that's 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 large eggs, 2 tablespoons of cold water, and 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. All right. So don't worry if you don't have these nice little decorations. Don't worry about it. Okay. Your goulash will probably still come out. You see, and I don't look at that. This is a little toy that I picked up in Budapest. Isn't that adorable? So we've got those would be called churques, and then I've got my little musicians. You can't go to Hungary without enjoying some just incredibly wonderful music. So let's get going. Let's get this this show on the road, or should I say these ingredients on the stove. To get started with this traditional Hungarian dish, the first thing you're going to do is grab yourself a large Dutch oven, and then you're going to take the 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and you're going to heat that vegetable oil over medium heat. Once you get the vegetable oil heated, you're going to add the onion to the Dutch oven, and you're going to let that cook. You're going to let the onion cook until it is golden. So we will do that, and we'll give it a few minutes, and then we'll be back. So we'll get these onions nice and golden, and then we will be back, or I'll be back, as Arnold used to say. So we'll be right back. Our onion has become a nice golden color, and the next step is to add the tomatoes. Or tomato, I should say. So we're going to add the large diced tomato. And then we're going to add the waxed peppers. Oh, that's already looking good. And I haven't even added the paprika yet. That comes next. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons of the paprika. And there you go. So we got the paprika added, and now we're going to stir that. I'm going to let that cook for 10 minutes. Echo, set timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes, starting now.
So there we have the tomato, the Hungarian, the waxed pepper, and the paprika cooking, and we'll let that cook for 10 minutes, and then we'll be back. And for those of you Hungarians out there watching, in case you're wondering which particular paprika I'm using, this would be it right here. And I try to pronounce that, but Sesame J or La Gusto Fursa paprika orlemene or orlemene. Maybe in another life I'll learn Hungarian. It's those characters with the funny little marks on top of them that kind of throw me for a loop. You know, I'm trying to get that in there. But anyway, so we'll be back in just a little bit after this has had some time to cook. Well, it's been 10 minutes, and the Hungarian wax pepper and the paprika and the onion and the tomato, you say tomato, I say tomato, you know, but that's been cooking. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more ingredients, starting with the celeriac root. And I got to tell you, you know, I've never come across this before. I've never had a recipe that called for celeriac root, and it called for a small celeriac root. Now I don't know what's a small one or a big one, so I might be adding too much celeriac root, or I don't know, not enough, but in the end it's all good. So we'll get the celeriac root in there. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is add the carrots and the peppercorn. So I don't know if you can see that, but I've put the peppercorn right inside. This kind of looks like a carrot bundt cake, if you will. You know, I guess I could kind of do something like that and serve it as like a bundt cake to a rabbit, you know, something like that. That could almost be a bundt cake for a rabbit. But anyway, so we'll get that going. We'll get the carrots and the peppercorn in there. And now comes the main attraction. Okay, drum roll please. I don't know if you can hear it, but that little Hungarian back there with the drum, he's beating his drum there. There you go. Oh boy! Now over there in Magyarország, which is the Hungarian name for Hungary, they'd be saying, "Oh Deo, nagyon jó, nagyon jó, nagyon szép." You know, the word najon means very, and yo is good, so najon yo is very good, or najon safe is very beautiful. Safe is beautiful, you know. And deo I think means very good also, I think. But anyway, living in Magyarország for 3 years, I learned just enough to make me dangerous. You know, I could, as long as I learned how to say Holvan Starbucks, which was where's the Starbucks? You know, then I was okay. So anyway, all right. So we're gonna let this. It says add the celeriac root, the peppercorns, the carrots, and the meat, and cook until the meat starts to brown. So I'm gonna let that cook until the meat starts to brown, and then we will be back. It's been several minutes, and the meat has started to brown. So I was kind of curious as I was mixing this up, because as I was reading the ingredients, there wasn't any water in the ingredients. But sure enough, in the instructions, at this point in time, after the meat has browned, you're going to add 4 to 6 cups of water. You're going to cover and cook over medium heat for about 20 minutes before adding the potatoes. So let's do that. I'm going to go with 6. I'm going to go with 6 cups of water. There we go. Boy, that looks good. That looks really, really good. So we'll add 2 more cups. There we go. So we have 6 cups of water. I'll stir that just a little bit. All right, so I'm going to let that go. Set the timer for 20 minutes.
20 minutes, starting now.
And I'm going to go ahead and put a cover over that. And we'll be back. Actually, while that's cooking, I am going to, while that's cooking, I'm going to go and start the spaetzle. Oh boy, goodness gracious. All right, falling under the category, there's a first time for everything. I can't say that I've ever made this before, so I'll give it the old college try. It says to mix the flour and the salt. So the flour would be 1 cup of all-purpose flour. So there's the 1 cup of the all-purpose flour. Then we're going to add 1/2 of a teaspoon of salt. So I will actually grab myself a little whisk, or a big whisk at that. So I'm going to go ahead and mix the flour and the salt. And then I'm going to add the eggs. I'm going to add the 2 large eggs. We'll see if I can't do this with one hand. All right. Oh, there you go. All right, just like when I used to work at Denny's years ago, making breakfast for folk. So there we go again. All right, so I've got the 2 eggs in there, and we're going to stir to make a stiff dough, sprinkling in a few drops of cold water at a time if necessary. Okay, so probably I'm going to switch over and use a little bit, something a little bit different there than that big thing. I'll grab my little happy face. So I'm going to make this into a stiff dough. It already is looking like a stiff. It's already looking like a stiff dough, if you can see that there. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of water. It actually calls for 2 tablespoons of cold water or more if needed. But I'm going to just add, there's 1 tablespoon, so I'll add a little bit, just add a little bit of water, like that. There you go. You want to add that a few drops at a time, and you want to knead it until smooth. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I'll add a little bit more water. There we go. And I will actually move the camera out just a little bit and grab my large silicone mat right here, and I'll put out my silicone mat just like that, and I'll add even a little bit more water. There you go. Just trying to get all the flour mixed in like that. Something like that. I'm assuming. Again, I've never actually done this before, but go ahead and knead that. Put a little bit more water in there. There you go. It's actually coming together. Knead until smooth. Cover the dough and let it rest for 30 minutes. So I'd have to say that is, if I can bring it in view of the camera. I'm trying to watch the camera here, and there you go. So I've got that. I'd say it's actually kneaded until smooth. So I'm going to put that in a little container and cover it and let it sit for about 30 minutes. So by that time I should be adding, I believe, the carrots to the goulash. Well, it's been 20 minutes, and I would think that this has been boiling. Look at that. Oh, that looks good, and it's not even done yet. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add the potatoes. There we go. So this is 5 to 6 medium potatoes that have been sliced. So I'm adding the potatoes, and what we're going to then do is we're going to add the potatoes, and we're going to cook until the meat is tender, about 1.5 hours. So I will let this cook for about 1.5 hours, and I bet it's going to be wonderful. Sure have a lot of goulash levash here. So it says cook until the meat is tender, about 1.5 hours, and it doesn't say whether you're going to cover it or not, so I'm not quite sure. I think what I will actually do is turn the heat down a little bit, and I'll cover it and let it simmer, if you will, for the 1.5 hours. So we'll be back. You can take a break, go for a walk, or do something like that, and then and then we'll be back. Well, the dough has been sitting now for about 30 minutes covered, and I'm gonna take it out. It says to flatten the dough a bit at a time between floured palms, or roll 1/8 of an inch thick on a floured board. So here I've got a floured board, and I'm gonna opt for the floured board as opposed to pinching a little bit at a time. So we will see. Again, I've never done this before, but I'm gonna roll this out, and we'll get it to about 1/8 of an inch. It's actually rolling quite easily. So we're almost there. Look at that. It's nice when things work out. So that is almost 1/8 of an inch. I'll roll it just a little bit more. I'm looking at this chart on this silicone mat, and it's right out to about almost 12 inches, or about 27.5, I'm assuming that would be centimeters. So there it is. Now the next part is actually to pinch off pieces slightly smaller than a dime, and then drop all of it at once into a rapidly boiling salted water and cook until tender, about 15 minutes. So I'd have to say that is about the better part of an eighth of an inch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pinch off pieces about the size of a dime, I guess, which would be probably about like that. So I'm going to put some flour on my hand, and that's it. Just a little bit at a time. So I'm not going to film myself doing all of this, but you can get an idea here. I'm just tearing off little pieces, just about the size of a dime, and I'm putting them on a little Tupperware thing here. So I'll be back, and we will drop this into the salted boiling water. Doesn't that look good? I am all but maybe about 10 minutes from this being finished, insofar as letting it cook for about an hour and a half, and boy, it looks good. And now I'm going to do the spaetzle, something like that. I don't know how you pronounce it, but anyway, you would think that I would learn that before I actually did it, or did the recipe, but that's all right. Anyway, so here we go. You see, I've got this all into like little dime-sized pieces, and it says to just drop it all at once into the boiling water, and a lot of it is sticking together, So I don't know. We will see, as the saying goes. It's all, interestingly enough, just sinking to the bottom. And I'm sure once it starts to cook, it'll float up. But let's see if we can't just kind of put all that in there, and hopefully it'll separate as it's starting to cook. It's going to be in there for better part of 15 minutes. So I'll have Echo over there set a timer. Echo, set a timer for 15 minutes. You know, on the outside chance that the individuals that are responsible for putting that cookbook together, Cooking with the Saints, boy, you know, I really gotta give credit where credit's due. That's one of the nicer cookbooks that I've come across in many a year. So thank you for the efforts of putting that collection of wonderful recipes together, and I hope I'm not butchering it. But anyway, so there you go. We're just gonna let that cook for 15 minutes, and we will be back. I'll stir it up just a little bit. I think it's gonna be fine. We will see, as the saying goes. All right, so there goes the timer, and I'm going to turn the water off, and I think, Echo, stop. I think that's going to be just fine right there. That'll be fine. And then as I turn this around, you know, I don't know how you say it in Hungarian, but here in America, at least, I think the saying goes something to the effect of soup is on, if I'm not mistaken, as I try to hold the camera still. But boy, that looks good. That looks really, really good. And you know what? I underestimated. I started this at 5, and now it's just after 9. And with the exception of doing the video, you know, this probably takes the better part of 2.5 to 3 hours. So I'm going to call it a night, and I'm going to let this sit overnight, and I will have this for I'll have this for lunch tomorrow. So we'll be back. Well, it's lunchtime, and whereas I thought I was going to be enjoying this meal last night, here I am enjoying it a day later. But it looks fantastic. And look at this little kettle that I picked up in Hungary, someplace along my travels. And this is a kettle that is, well, it's a representative of how they would actually cook. Well, it's lunchtime, and whereas I thought I was going to be eating this goulash levash yesterday for dinner, here I am the next day having it for lunch, and I've let some of it heat up over the last 30 to 45 minutes on a real low temperature while I was doing some work. And now we're going to give it a shot. And you know, this kettle that you see here, you know, the herdsmen, if you would, the herdsmen or the cowboys, if you will, over in Hungary, they would have these big kettles with them, and they would cook the goulash in these big kettles over an open flame. And I picked this little kettle up somewhere along the line. You can actually put a little candle in down underneath, and you set this in, and it gives it's kind of nice, you know. It's nice to have it like that way. But anyway, you know, over there in Hungary, I came to appreciate things like this here. You would see I would bring back some dried paprika, you know, and oftentimes they'd have this on the table, and you might cut a little bit of this to give it a little bit of a kick. Or my favorite was actually this here, if I can open it. Ah, there you go. This is paprika cream, and I absolutely, I can't get enough of this stuff, the paprika cream. I would bring jars of it back with me when I would come back from Hungary. And you just take some of this, not too much, mind you. You just take some of this and you kind of stir it into the goulash levash, and it just really adds a nice flavor to it. So the only thing missing, I used to enjoy, actually and love, going down to the Danube and just sitting on the Danube and watching the boats go by and having my goulash, and listening to music. And that's the only thing missing, but actually I can, if only in spirit, I can bring these little musicians out here. You see, you got the violin and the drummer, and we can go ahead and give this a taste. It looks good. It looks really, really good. Oh boy, that's good. That's really, really good. That's, as they would say over in Hungary, it's nagyon finom. Nagyon finom. Fantastic. Ah. Oh boy. Oh boy, this is good. So, here's to St. Elizabeth, and cooking with the saints. So, have a great day.